Speaking of RH, let's look at his tweet last week. So he tweeted last Thursday about pDAI and showing the chart again to ETH holders. Now, this marks like the fifth or sixth time that he has shown that chart and talked about how many X's it has done. I think this tweet was probably the most explicit he's been, where he literally described what the chart is. Sometimes he'll just be like, hey, check this out, pretty neat, or whatever. Or like, hey, Ethereum bros, check this coin out. Or this one, he like, if I recall, and I know I sent it to you. Yeah, he actually like described what it was. So he says, this coin is up. Oh boy, that's a big number. 2,792,622,851% in 547 days. Ethereum, you might have some of this free coin waiting for you, but few people know about it, which I'd say is proof y'all could benefit from doing some marketing. This is the free DAI on Pulse Chain. Insane gains are cooler when people know about them. There's so many angles to this that I want to pick your brain on. We kind of got in a DM fight about it, I think, a little bit last week. But he's talking about how many X's it's done. Overall, he's been tweeting a ton lately about this, about pDAI, there was another tweet last week where I think he did it twice, tweeted a whole bunch of PRC20 copies and how much they've been up in the past couple of weeks. So I guess let's start here because there's so many angles I want to approach this at. So in terms of like when he's talking about advertising, who is he specifically? Is he talking about like our community and stuff for people not talking about it enough? Because I think a good portion of us do, but at the same time, there are a good bit who I just don't know if we're having the same conversation here. Because when I tried to talk to you about this last week, you were saying that, well, he's just advertising that people have these copies and to come get them. And like, you know, basically these people are going to just come and dump them or whatever. I don't know that that's the case with pDAI. Obviously, that's a little bit different. But is he just advertising, hey, you guys have free coins, or also like, should we be advertising and talking about what is happening with pDAI here? Because a lot of people are doing that as well, but there's also a lot of people who somehow still are like, oh, you know, this is a conspiracy theory. What are you guys talking about? That has nothing to do with anything. What direction do you think he's meaning by this with the marketing here?
Well, so his last sentence, insane gains are cooler when people know about them. You know, he is, in my opinion, getting people over to Pulse Chain. You've got to start somewhere, right? You've got to get people on the chain. And I think he's telling Ethereum, you might have, you know, some of this free coin waiting for you. And I hear so many people say, well, they didn't make those percent gains. Well, they sure did if they got them for free, because it essentially started at zero. How low can you go, right? It started at zero. And now you're up to a penny. So yeah, anybody that had DAI at that point when the fork happened in March, they got free stuff. So I think what he's doing is telling us, you know, proof that you all could benefit from marketing. He wants us to get to the Ethereum people and say, guys, you've got free stuff over here. There's a lot of tokens. You know, you've got to find ways to get people into the chain. You got to get them over here. You got to get them active. That's when they discover other things. You know, they find the PulseX, they find the Hex, they find some cool meme coins, like whatever you're interested in. They get to use the chain. They get to see that it works. It works wonders. It is faster than Ethereum. So there's a lot of good things about telling people, hey, you got free stuff. You know, you're onboarding. That's what you're doing. That's why when Hex launched, he gave it to the Bitcoin holders, right? You always want to incentivize another community that they have free stuff. Hey, you got some free stuff over here. Come and get it. And a percentage of them will stay. Some of them will sell and leave and never come back. And that is part of the, you know, the growth curve that you've got to go through. But the more you can market it to people and tell them that they've got free things over here, the more of them may stay and stick around and do other things. So that's my opinion of why he was saying what he was saying.
Yeah. And I do think because the biggest thing was the world's largest airdrop. That was going to be the big advertising thing at the beginning, and it seemed like that just it didn't really work for a while to get people to come over. And do you think that's because we launched in May of 2023? Nobody, many less people were around this space at
Yeah.
the time. Things were still dead and horrible for quite a while. I mean, for almost another year anyway. So do you think that that's really just why? And how much? I mean, when he does these tweets, especially the pDAI tweets, like how much of it do you think is just like, hey, you have copies over here, versus like I'm trying to tell you that something is going on with this stable coin on Paul's chain? Because he's
Well,
tweeted specifically about that a number of times, more than any of the other ones, and about the PWBTC a number of
right.
times, which it also looks like something's going on with. So,
Well, and you got to look at the gains, right? I mean, charts that look like this are going to get your attention.
mhm.
Something that's only up 100x may not. But you look at a 2 billion%, 2 million x, essentially is what you're getting at here, right? 27 million x. I think that's
Yeah.
you move it over 2 places, and that's your x's. So this is going to get someone's attention a lot more than saying, "Hey, you have a copy of
Yeah.
whatever,
Some
maker, whatever,
yeah, yeah.
any random token."
Mhm.
It hasn't done these type of gains. Then once people get in and look at it, maybe there is more. Maybe there is hidden meaning to it, but we can't. I mean, I don't ever infer that you know he will come out and say, "Hey, I'm behind this." By the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah, I don't think that'll ever happen, honestly.
we're gonna make this stable coin peg, because then you do have those big institutions that have exchanges or whatever that may have a bunch, and they just continue to dump the price, defeating the purpose. But that's one of the things that Richard has always done too, is to get people out near bottoms before anything big happens. So I think that's why we want to market this now, before it does get up any higher. If you do believe in pDAI to $1, you want to advertise the shit out of it now, so that people that do want to sell can take their profits and go, and make it more likely to go higher, because the people that are involved then, will be in tune with what we want to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, I think continuing to show that chart is going to be good. And I think eventually we will see that. And I mean, it's funny too, because how many times in the last couple of weeks when, again, everybody's been capitulating on Ethereum and ditching it and blah, 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 blah. And we're now literally seeing people like the big time know nothing, you know, large follower Twitter accounts saying things like, um, can we just fork Ethereum? Like at this point, like this thing's a failure. Can we fork it? Like literally not even knowing that it's been done. And then if they do find out that it's been done, then it's like, oh, well, he's a scammer. And that's not, they don't even know what they're talking about.
Right.
Um, but how great is it though, even though right now they're kind of mid curving it like that? How great is it though that eventually they're calling for that now and eventually they could kind of be forced over at some point or whatever word you want to use, coerced over or influenced over. And then, well, he's still a scammer, but I just came over to get these tokens. Or,
Yeah.
um,
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, movement is movement, and users are users. They find something. Um, you know, People say one thing and do others. Just because they may say he's a scammer and I don't trust that, they could easily figure out that they've got stuff over here and come play in the playground. They don't have to announce it to anybody.
yeah,
So
true.
that still helps the PulseX, the buy and burn. It still helps active users, validators, things like that. So just because they say one thing, it doesn't always mean. You got to really watch what people do and not really what they say. If we see user counts going up, I have a feeling that's what's happening, is people are discovering things. One of the reasons I think that the world's largest airdrop didn't have the effect that we thought it may is because you had that ETHW happen and ETH Fair. Both of those were also very similar, right? I mean, they had
Yeah.
airdrops as well. They just didn't get the adoption. They didn't have a community behind them, essentially. So I think that kind of, I don't want to say it fizzled on that, but I think maybe that's why, because it kind of already did happen once. And then Pulse Chain did it again, but with some cooler features and other protocols and a much bigger community behind it. So,
Yeah. Well, I do find it interesting that we do have all those ETH pros now calling for a fork of Ethereum when it's already happening. We have, large megaphones and everybody's talking about it over here now.
oh
So
yeah,
we are advertising. We've been talking about it. And again, like we talked about with Frank last week, we had that huge conversation about advertising and what works and all that. And just the mind share and creating content like this and always talking about it and sharing experiences, I think is really number one. I mean, Frank himself talked about how he really fell upon Hex by that. Like he was looking into DeFi and stuff, and he found a whole bunch of Hex stuff on YouTube. So we're here, we're doing it every single day, and everybody else that cares enough is doing it too. And if you're out there and you have the ability to do this, if you think that you have nothing to offer, you very well may, and you just need to pick up a microphone and try it out. That's what you got to do. So